You put it out on the curb every week for free. Bottles, cardboard, a pizza box you feel a little guilty about. And somehow that pile is part of $100 billion industry, one where the owners aren't the ones going broke. Here's what doesn't add up. Most of what's in that bin is worth almost nothing. Some of it, glass, greasy cardboard, mixed plastic, is worth less than nothing. It costs money just to get rid of. So, how is anybody making a fortune off your trash? By the end of this video, you'll know exactly where that money actually comes from, why the material itself is closer to a liability than an asset, and how one country on the other side of the planet nearly wiped out this entire industry in about 90 days without a single new US law being passed. You'll also learn why the most valuable person in this business isn't running the sorting line. He's the one who signed the contract with the city. Here's the redefinition to sit with. Owning a recycling company isn't owning a manufacturing business that turns trash into treasure. It's owning a toll booth, one that charges you to make a problem disappear and only sometimes finds a second beer for that problem afterward. Buried inside that toll booth is a risk that's already bankrupted operators and put executives in federal prison. We're coming back to it. And it lands on you, the owner. Here's what it actually costs to get in. At the bottom, a small, established operation out of rural Wisconsin, decades of local relationships, modest equipment, trades for around $173,000 a year in owner cash flow. That's entry level. You run the baler, you know every customer by name, you make a solid living nobody writes about. Step up and you're in Pennsylvania territory, a recycling company founded in 1970 with direct municipal contracts, asking just under $7 million, pulling $5.6 million in revenue and $1.5 million in documented cash flow. At the very top, there's a scrap metal recycling operation currently listed for $18 million, generating $2.73 million a year in EBITDA. Notice what all three have in common. None of them are really selling you tons of material. They're selling you a contract. Here's one fact for the group chat. Craig Lork and Jeff Zirkle built Total Reclaim into the Northwest's largest e-waste recycler, publicly branding it a friend of the earth. Behind that brand, prosecutors found the two men had secretly shipped more than 8 million pounds of mercury-containing monitors to Hong Kong, where workers with no protective gear smashed them open by hand. Both men were sentenced to 28 months in federal prison in 2019. So, where does the money actually come from, the legitimate version of it? Think of a recycling company not as a factory, but as a toll booth with 2 lanes. Lane 1, you pay the company to take your problem away. The tipping fee charged per ton, no matter what happens to the material afterward. Lane 2, the company tries to resell that material to a mill, a smelter, or a processor for whatever the market pays that week. Lane 1 is guaranteed. Lane 2 is a bet. And for years, the American recycling industry outsourced almost all of Lane 2 to a single country. China was, at its peak, buying 56% of the world's exported plastic scrap by weight. Then on January 1, 2018, under a policy called Operation National Sword, China slammed that door shut, banning 24 categories of material and setting a contamination limit so strict almost none of America's recycling could meet it. Bales that used to sell for real money became worthless overnight. Some processors quietly started landfilling material they were still calling recycling on the truck. Break the real revenue down. The tipping fee is the guaranteed part. Lakeshore Recycling Systems, which serves Greater Chicago, reports that roughly a quarter of its revenue comes from tip fees alone, priced to undercut what haulers would otherwise pay at the landfill. The commodity sale is the volatile part. Glass, in particular, is so heavy and abrasive it often costs more to process than it earns. And the exclusive municipal franchise contract is the part that changes everything. In most American cities, you don't choose your recycling company any more than you choose your water utility. One company, one multi-year deal, every household in that territory a captive customer. The material was never really the product. It was the delivery mechanism for controlling a monopoly on somebody else's problem. You've lived inside this system without noticing it. Your bill climbs almost every year regardless of what commodity prices are doing because the exclusive contract sets your rate, not the market. And when something goes wrong, there's nowhere else to take your business. In San Francisco, that exact setup produced one of the largest municipal corruption cases in recent memory. Recology, the city's sole waste and recycling contractor, overcharged ratepayers more than $94 million between 2017 and 2021, right as the city's public works director, Mohamed Nuru, was accused of taking bribes from the company he was supposed to regulate. Recology executives were charged with bribery and honest services fraud. Nuru was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison. Total bill for Recology, once penalties and settlements were added up, more than $150 million, pulled from 160,000 households that never had a second company to switch to failures, same root cause. Total Reclaim lied about where the material went. Recology bribed the person who was supposed to police its rates. Different mechanics, same license. Each one treated a captive, guaranteed revenue stream as permission to stop being honest about what was happening underneath it. The moment a prosecutor or an auditor showed up, there was nothing real left standing. There's a group that wins consistently, though, and it's not the operator with the biggest sorting line. Wayne Huizenga started in 1962 with one borrowed garbage truck in Pompano Beach, Florida. By the time he took the company he built, Waste Management, public in 1972, he'd personally acquired 133 small haulers. By 1983, it was the largest waste company in the country. That scale didn't come from hustling harder on his own route. It came from buying the small operator down the street, folding their contracts into a bigger company, and repeating it city by city until the company itself became the toll booth for an entire region. This is how a guaranteed money business still produces broke and indicted owners. People will always generate trash. Cities will always need somewhere to send it. What runs out isn't demand. It's discipline. The toll booth is safe. You are not. So here's the number you came for. Buy something close to that Wisconsin-sized operation. Run it lean. Stay honest on every ton. Realistic owner income lands between $80,000 and $180,000 a year. One of the more durable small businesses in America. Buy or build towards something closer to that $18 million scrap operation, and you're not really sorting bottles anymore. You're controlling land, contracts, and disposal capacity at industrial scale. That's exactly how the biggest names in this industry quietly became landlords instead of recyclers, if you want to. See this same trade. Guaranteed fee against an unguaranteed owner. I'll play out in a completely different industry. The towing video walks through the identical mechanism with cars instead of cardboard. Okay, so you wanted to own a recycling company. Turns out the bottles and the cardboard were never really what you were buying. It was a contract, a toll booth, and a very patient bet that somebody else's garbage would keep showing up at your gate year after year, whether the market wanted it or not.